Good evening, everyone, and let's welcome you to the CAWASA Wednesday webinar. And we want to first apologize for 2 weeks ago when we had crashed by Zoom itself and not us. So we're having, while some of us were able to log in, we were not able to get everybody on. So the decision was to postpone the webinar or defer it for a subsequent date. So getting back in line this week, we have someone who needs no introduction really. He is well known throughout the Caribbean and elsewhere. He has worked in Sub-Saharan Africa, Europe as a consultant and academic. He has been the principal investigator and researcher on a number of research projects on the impact of climate change on water availability in the Caribbean. And he was the head of SERMES before he went into another area. I wouldn't say retirement because it's, as a former boss of mine would have said, it's new retirement. He's got new tires on. And he is with us this
Repurposed.
afternoon.
It's like reuse water.
Yeah. So let us welcome Dr. Adrian Cashman. And he's going to have a very interesting and different presentation for us this afternoon. Over to you, Dr. Cashman.
Thank you very much, Ignatius and Valerie, for the opportunity this afternoon. Just as a little bit of background, in recent years, I've become very interested in something we call future foresight scenarios. Future foresight scenarios are looking into the future, looking at possible futures and what those futures might look like and how they might impact and influence the things that we do. I won't go too much into how you construct foresight scenarios, but one of the things that got me thinking was we talk a lot these days about climate change, the impacts of climate change. We're talking about how we plan for the future, how we build resilience, how we adapt to climate change, how can we look at mitigating some of the impacts of climate change. And we're trying to think ahead, looking at the things that we do now and looking ahead and thinking, well, how will those make the future better? Or how will they be performing in the future? So in talking to a few friends, what I thought we could do, because we speculate quite a lot about what the future holds, and especially climate change. But I thought, one of the best ways that we could maybe get a better understanding of what the future holds would be to get into our time machine, go forward 25 years to the year 2050, and seek out one or two people in different areas and ask them, so what is your life like now in 2050? What are you experiencing? So we've invited them to share their experiences. In one case, we set up an interview with them. So what I want to do now is I want to share with you the video that we have made from talking to those people in the year 2050. The video is about 20 minutes long. And then what I would like us to do afterwards, I would like you to all reflect on your own experiences and perhaps share some of your reactions to what you have seen. So without further ado, I'm going to load up the movie. There. And we will start off. The movie is called 4Futures. It's actually a little bit of a misnomer because there are actually five of the 5 futures, but they are all from a different perspective. What we have tried to do is to get people from different perspectives, all having something to say about water, and look at people from invite people from different territories across the Caribbean. So we will have something of a cross-section of views on what life is like with climate change in the year 2050. So here goes, and please let me know if you're seeing the video.
This is the Caribbean. Yep. Beautiful beaches and breathtaking landscapes. The future of these islands is becoming increasingly vulnerable due to the climate crisis. Stronger storms, warming oceans, and longer droughts are quickly becoming a reality for the region. As the world struggles to bring down greenhouse gas emissions, we are on the verge of reaching the 1.5-degree target, and temperatures are on course to reach 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels by 2050. We ask the question, how does this affect water resources and its management in the future? We have heard so much discussion around climate and what it might mean for Caribbean people and countries. We decided to do something. We got into our time machine and traveled to the year 2050 and asked people what their life and work situation is like. Here's what some of them had to do. Our first stop is Barbados, where we hear from a retired meteorologist. Let's hear his story.
Hello, I am Brian Murray. Welcome to my channel, MPFI Weather Stories, of which it emphasizes on weather events in Barbados. I am 81 years old and retired from the Barbados Meteorological Services. Great here, but thankful to be alive. On this day, I am going to talk about the current state of the weather and climate, like this guy here. So let us begin. The question is, how is the climate and the weather at the moment? Well, based on previous projection by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is the IPCC, the mean air temperature is now 34 degrees Celsius, which is about 2 to 3 degrees higher than it was in the year 2024. That is not good news. So Barbados is dealing with very hot days and nights. As you can see from this chart here, the mean maximum temperature in September is now around 36 degrees Celsius, while June night is around between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius. So we are dealing with very hot days and very hot nights. As a matter of fact, I think that
Adrian, we're not hearing the sound.
To feel the warmth of the
Oh,
weather.
there we go.
Like this way, but we will only risk that in a category 1. Definitely not in a category 6. So what can we do to mitigate it? Well,
You hearing now?
to reduce the possibility of human beings
Yes.
mental health to prevent suffering from heat stroke and other heat-related illnesses. A condition was installed in my house. But you may ask, what about the electric bill? No worries. As you can see, the system is solar powered. At the same time, the electrical circuits in my house are modified to reduce the likelihood of a fire if the batteries suffer from thermal runaway. As far as the dry season is concerned, it is even drier with rationing of our supplies being the norm. From produce is still being harvested by controlled greenhouses due to the damaging rays of the sun. This is forcing homeowners, including myself, to install additional tanks and have 2 separate water distribution systems, one for drinking and the other for gardening and flushing the toilets. During the wet season, severe flooding is more common due to the increased urbanization in the countryside. But that is happening. I listened to a advisory issued by the dedicated staff at the Barbados Meteorological Services, which highlighted the arrival of a category 6 hurricane. Unlike in previous years, the Bermuda Azores site has expanded to such an extent that the main of the hurricanes has relocated further south. Hence, Barbados has been in the breadcast of severe hurricane since the year 2030. And not only that, but the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic have remained above 32 degrees Celsius. As a result of these hurricanes, I had to change the design of my house so that it can withstand the onslaught of a category 6. As you can see here, they are very nice houses. When we changed over years, has changed the ways of living. Here are some examples. So in my case now, you gotta do gardening at unusual hours of night, say like between 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. or say like from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. to avoid, the harsh rays of the sun. Thank you for watching.
Next, we go to Trinidad and hear from a young man trying to make sense of his country's water woes.
Hi everyone, it is October 1st, 2000, Trinidad and Tobago is suffocating under a water crisis so severe that it feels like the land is not forgiving. Rainfall, barely 75% of what it once was. Rivers that used to feed on crops and plant shelters, gone, dried up like scars on it. Desalination plants, those solutions we clung to, they're overwhelmed. The demand is too high and the supply is too low. You want clean water, you pay for it. And it's not cheap. For some, a glass of water now costs more than a meal. We used to joke about it. Now it's real. The groundwater, that's been poisoned too. Salt water has crept in from the coast, seeping into these rivers we once thought we could count on. It's like the island itself is turning against us, offering nothing but dust and salt. But the real tragedy is us. Decades of ignoring the warnings, of half measures and broken promises. The water system that was supposed to be a safety net, that's a joke. In Trinidad, it's been handed over to private companies. If you don't have the money, you don't have water. Simple as that. And in Tobago, it's kept it under government control, but all that's brought with it is rationing. The taps are dry days on end. And rainwater harvesting, we talked about it for years, made grand plans, but it never caught on. It's too little, too late. And the droughts, they never stop. Year after year, we wait for rain that never comes. Instead, we get fire, land burns, with it. Any hope recovering water stops. Now, people are turning on each other and fighting for water. Neighbors who used to share meals are now hoarding what they have. Families are torn apart, all for a few liters of water. It's liquid gold. This isn't just a shortage. This is a complete collapse. The land that once provided for us, that didn't can't anymore. And the biggest part, we saw this coming. We had air prepared. And here we are, parched, desperate, and divided, fighting over a future that we let slip away.
As we become more urbanized and island state, what are we doing to reduce city temperature? From the metropolis of Kingston, Jamaica, we hear how that city is responding.
My job entails the design and planning from an individual home to streetscapes, parks, and other public spaces in urban areas, to the design of regional master plans. I do this for public and private clients. I work very closely with ecosystems and especially plants. I also make suggestions for materials to be used as paving and outdoor furniture. In my job, I have to deal with the impact of hotter temperatures and longer droughts on ecosystems and the plants that I use in design. The city has become much hotter, not only because of increasing atmospheric temperatures, but also because of the increased paving from the rapid urbanization. The government was late in developing building regulations to mandate the use of more greenery along roadways and on high-rise buildings. Using greenery has made a big difference in the temperatures and created a more comfortable living environment. Greenery also removes carbon from the atmosphere. Stormwater management as a result of the paved areas and heavy rainfall was also a major issue. There is now a government drive to introduce the use of green infrastructure and other nature-based solutions to mimic and utilize natural systems to manage runoff. I'm always on the lookout for research into new materials that can be used for paving. Materials that are more porous and radiate less heat are on the top of my list. Lastly, even with all the programs to create a more comfortable living environment, the workers who I deal with find it difficult to be outside during the hottest times of the day, usually between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. They have adjusted their working times to work earlier or later in the day when the temperatures and radiation are a bit less. This is just a snippet of my working life in the new normal.
Managing water resources has become critical. Like all countries across the region, Dominica has risen to the challenge of the climate crisis and established a water resources management body.
Dominica has been blessed with an abundance of fresh water resources as compared to that of our neighbors. But it is now 2050, and though we have been fair and better than most, the island has begun dealing with the crippling effects of climate change and its effects on water resources. Overall, decreased rainfall, droughts, and the constant battering by tropical weather systems have made adaptation rather than mitigation the order of the day. Investment by foreign agencies have facilitated adaptation measures by allowing for research and development of alternative water sources such as groundwater exploration. Efforts have also been made to amalgamate, centralize, and upgrade water systems to reduce the need for multiple and stretched human and financial interventions after a storm. Such investments and efforts have enabled the utility to be more efficient and better meet the needs of consumers, given the decline in resources. The hope for the future is that greater investment, both local and foreign, will enable the use of ICT, AI, and other technologies to aid in the development, progression, and sustainable management of water resources.
Lastly, we traveled to Grenada to learn about the initiatives that the Spice Isle has put in place to ensure its water security.
Welcome to the Water World, the program where we catch up with the latest developments in today's water sector. Today we're talking to Mr. Smith, the Chief Executive Officer of Grenada's National Water and Sewage Corporation. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Adrian. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedule to talk to us today. So let's dive right in and examine how you are rising to the challenges of 2050 in the water sector. So my first question to you is, Grenada's population over the last few decades has been, how should we say, stagnating. but that also implies that you have an aging population. This must have an impact on your workforce. How are you coping with that?
You are correct. It is having an impact. But let me point out that the corporation over the last let's say 20-25 years, we've been able to, through, in a word, system and workforce efficiency, we have been able to reduce our required workforce for the water utility from about 275 to just under 200. So, as they say, we're working smarter rather than harder. So, at the outset, all of our water systems are now digitized. So, we've been able to deploy the latest information technology, AI, artificial intelligence tools, and devices, etc., to enhance the management of our water systems.
Temperatures have increased significantly. How have your teams in the field been able to cope with this situation?
Yes, Adrian. Well, the high daily temperatures are posing basically occupational health and safety or OSH challenges for our staff. We have adapted by changing our working practices mainly in two ways, right? Firstly, we have introduced the following what we refer to as administrative control through widespread use of flexi time. Employees now carry on their field work in earlier and later parts of the day when the temperatures are not as extreme. Secondly, we've changed our working practices by introducing several engineering or technological controls, they can be called. And these include, for example, each crew is equipped with an ambient temperature sensor, which monitors temperature, of course, and triggers an alarm to alert the need for a mandatory water break.
So that is about the workplace. Now, I'd like to turn up our attention to the water resources. Now, as we know, 25 years ago, Grenada used to source most of its water supply from surface water resources. It's not to say that groundwater wasn't part of it, but with records showing that rainfall has decreased in some cases by up to 25% annually, you're getting less from your surface water resources. So how have you been able to cope with this impact of climate change on the water resources, reducing water availability?
Most of these projects, which were funded by the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, these have allowed our organization to address a number of water supply and water resources management problems. Again, the foremost among them, the Water Resources Management Unit, one of the key components of the GCRUISE project. This has given life and meaning to integrated water resources management. The water management project, to which I referred, that has enabled our utility to focus on our 15 or 16 most high-risk catchment or storm watershed.
You pointed out that by reducing the wastage of water through non-revenue water, through diversification of sources, of smart ways of interacting with your customers, you've been able to largely offset, in fact, by the sound of it, you have more than offset the decreases that climate change has brought on the available water resources. And I think that's a message that should resonate with our other water utilities throughout the Caribbean. So is there any other tips that you would like to share with us?
So we've invested heavily over the last two and a half decades in improving the resilience of these. and it has paid dividends. We deploy, for example, check dams. We have smarter methods of withdrawing water from our intake, which make them less vulnerable to siltation. There are still times when, despite our efforts that are watershed improvement, we do have periods in extreme rainfall when we do have some siltation. But the check dams that we've deployed have proved to be very, very effective. And so I would say, in a word, improved climate resilience.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Smith, for joining us this evening at the Water Well to share your and your country's experience. Thank you everybody for joining us, and good night.
Welcome back to the present day Caribbean. That was a glimpse into the future.
So welcome back, everybody. That was, as I said, was a glimpse of the future. You've heard from a variety of countries. You've heard from a variety of points of view. Some of them quite different from each other. In other cases, there are actually some common themes that have been highlighted by the different speakers. I would now like to turn over to you, the audience, to share with us what your reactions are to what you have seen. Does this resonate with you? Does this spur your thinking about how we are going to react to cope with the future? Are we doing enough now to prepare for those futures? So maybe with those few comments, those few thoughts, I will turn over to you and ask you to share with the rest of us what your thoughts are. So over to you. Who would like to go first?
Maybe I'll make a comment, Adrian.
Go ahead, Valerie.
When we talk about 2030, I'm not, 2050 or 25 years from now, I'm not sure we're not talking 5 years from now. Climate change is exacerbating very, very quickly, faster than people had thought. And I'm not sure that they're talking about 25 years in the future. I think what they're talking about are things that we have to be looking at now. I also love the TARDIS. I don't know if anybody else recognized the TARDIS from Doctor Who, but I certainly did. Coming from, but I think that I don't think that's 25 years in the future.
I have to say that when we did a session on this at the CWWA conference, that was actually quite a common comment on there. So who else would like to have a go? Give some reaction. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on Timothy. Please go ahead.
Hi, good day. Timothy Augustus here, professional operator out of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is, it's scary. It's scary. I'm getting water like 3 days a week, if so much. Sometimes the time between that is 8 days and stuff like that, It's challenging. And I didn't see a projection for a lot of fires, especially if we have high temperatures and low water and stuff like that. So we have these strategic development goals 2030. We are nowhere near. We at June at the conference, your water operation conference, operators conference, we would be, at half the year already, and we nowhere near that. as I agree with Valerie, we need to do things now. I'm not seeing us. We would be in a very grim situation if we don't start to implement the necessary measures, the reuse of, I'm gonna advocate for the reuse of wastewater. The non-revenue water, we need to reduce that. You know, why we have all these lines that we have to dig up and repair every 2 weeks or less.
Okay, thank you very much, Timothy Fuller. I have to say, just with a little bit of a little bit of background on the Trinidad and Tobago situation is, yeah.
I think, Dr. Cashman, you've gone a bit static for a bit. You are muted.
Thank you very much for sharing that. As I said, just a little bit of background. The scenario that we gave to the young man was probably one of the more challenging ones. So that's why it was perhaps a little bit more pessimistic than some of the others. But unfortunately, when we've been discussing it, seems what he is referring to seems to resonate and resonate with people's fears for the future there. So thank you for sharing that with us. Somebody else. Okay, maybe Nicole. Nicole Austin. You're from Guyana, if I remember correctly.
No, I'm from Barbados.
Oh, Barbados. Sorry,
Yes,
I was thinking of somebody else, Nicole. Sorry.
That's all right.
What do you think?
For me, listening in on these scenarios and then having an understanding of the projects that are ongoing throughout the Caribbean, some of the not necessarily issues, but some of the solutions are some of, like in that last one where the Grenada spoke about all the different things that are helping them. When you look around the region, not all of the islands are going to have that much support, or some projects will get pushed versus others, all depending on what's happening within that country. So to hear the Grenada scenario for me was like, wow, unicorn land there, Grenada, good stuff. You got it, you got everything fell into place, but some countries will push the NRW, some will try to do, wastewater reuse, but to have everything going at the same time, yeah, unicorn land. But, it is all about being optimistic and knowing that even if you do one aspect of it, that you will get some kind of assistance going into the hotter climate and the longer droughts and the very harsh rainfall when it does fall. So, little bits at a time and we will tackle it all. Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. Just as a little bit of background, when I approached Mr. Smith, one of the things that he did in preparation for his contribution was he actually sat down with his engineers and managers and other people within CAWASA and said, and they had a discussion, a group discussion around this. And what he is sharing with you is actually an outcome of a discussion that they had within their organization. And he said it was a very good learning experience for them as a group, and highlighted some of the things that they believe that they should be thinking about, but actually weren't thinking about before then. So very interesting the way it prompted some forward thinking there. So who else? There's somebody from a water utility that would like to maybe share their perspectives. Maybe I pick somebody else out again. Tweary Benjamin, you happen to be right in the middle of my screen. So you're right on my eye level. So can I invite you to perhaps share some your thoughts with us? Benjamin? No? Bit shy, maybe? Okay, what about Mark Blackland? Mark, are you hearing us? Ooh, okay.
We have some regulars online, like Gary Pilgrim is on almost every week. So maybe Gary and Shannon.
Okay, Gary, you're being put on the spot. Gary Pilgrim. No.
Hearing us? Are you hearing us, guys? Ouch. What about, I think Shannon joined us a little late, so he might miss some of it, but he might share some of his experiences from Dominica.
Okay, yeah, Shannon, what are some of the experience one of your countrymen has given some of their thoughts?
Yeah, Luis gave some perspectives of what was going on in Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
Would you kindly repeat that?
Yes, Shannon, you may have come in a little bit late, but can you, what we're saying is inviting you to share some of your perspectives of how Dominica is preparing to cope with the impacts of climate change on the water sector.
Well, as you know, we have been pushing how should I say it, a little more resilient motto. So therefore, we have been improving our intakes and improving our water catchment area, improving the structure in our water catchment areas. So how should I say it now? We have a lot of rivers here. So one of our biggest issues we normally have is the heavy rainfall due to the time and the increase in the storms and stuff. Is that we have excess flooding in lower areas, which sometimes like excess flooding in lower areas, so we have to mitigate against these things. What else can I say? But for now, we are just studying the current trend as to what actually happens during these times, and try to pattern ourselves to build more resilient structures so we can get back on track as soon as possible. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Shannon. Can I invite maybe a few other people? You've had a little bit of time to digest this.
Adrian, I think going to Nicole's point, with Grenada and Terence having laid out the plan, which is very comprehensive. Did they talk about the financing? Because Nicole's point is, well, this is lovely. We'd like to do it, but where the heck are we going to get the money? We might have to pick one or two things and move those forward.
Certainly true. But there is another perspective that I think Terence is trying to get across, is that some of this is about changing working practices, changing the way things are being done, which may not actually involve an awful lot of expenditure. Right. Certainly one of the things that struck me when I was listened to the various presenters was the very strong indication that we're going to have to look at working practices, particularly for people who work out in the field. And that is those are in some ways not very costly to do, but will require negotiation, will require changes in the way we think about how we go about producing services. I think that was one of the messages that came across to me. I have to say as well that that interview with Mr. Smith, he actually produced a lot more material than you've actually seen there, which will not surprise some of you, I know. No.
Well, of course, I was trying to give everybody else an opportunity to respond. But in all of this, I think if we go back to 2018, when we were then preparing the white paper, which eventually became the RSAP, and going to the World Water Forum, and even at our last presentation to the World Water Forum, it shows that the Caribbean, I think a lot of the CEOs and government officials or the policy makers are fully cognizant of what is taking place. And even the then Water for Life conference that we had in Barbados 2023, which was supported by an agency that is no more. A lot of lessons came out of that, and it also brought to the fore a lot of work that is taking place in the region towards having adaptation and mitigation measures to climate change in the water sector. As an example, I have a copy of the budget present state policy statement by the Prime Minister for St. Lucia, and I mean, it has about at least 2 pages speaking about the water sector. So, I mean, that's how important, because now people are appreciating the gravity of the situation in St. Kitts. There are major policy initiatives to be able to be better prepared to live within the situation that we have now because of increasing scarcity in many parts of the region, and looking for alternatives. So I think the question about, as indicated by Nicole and yourself, Dr. Cashman, is about the mechanisms of financing. I think Grenada and Barbados were able to tap into the Green Climate Fund. And I think there are other countries are learning from those experiences and now even better prepared, and I think are well advanced in making the case to the GCF to get support for helping to build resilience of their water infrastructure. So I think these types of conversations are resonating even better now within the region, and it's not something in the distant future, but it is impacting us now. And I think we have to find solutions even at a lower level. In fact, there are some examples. I remember maybe over 5 years ago when there were major challenges in Barbados, and the Barbados government then had I think it was one of the credit unions to establish an office within the headquarters of the Barbados Water Authority, and they would be able to help with financing the tanks, and the BWA would do the installation of the pumps and so on. I think similarly that was done in St. Vincent, a similar storage, because people beginning to understand with our current capacities, we have to encourage customers to have storage on site. WASCO has a plan, in fact, people can access financing for a water tank, I think maybe 1,000-gallon storage, or dependent on what capacity you want. And they have an arrangement with a supplier, and WASCO would make the deductions off your water bill, you know, to pay back that loan. So there are things that are going on because utilities are hard pressed to meet the increasing demand against less supply or of the water resource.
Yeah. Ignatius, certainly agree with you. There are some very interesting developments, and I think one of the benefits that we have, and certainly through the fora that we have in the Caribbean, of sharing the experiences of the various countries and the initiatives that they're coming up with. So you've referenced the revolving funds in Barbados, and I know Nicole could probably add a little bit more to that. But you know, that, as you say, is encouraging people, supporting households to install rainwater harvesting systems. It's not just about installing rainwater harvesting systems. There's a whole infrastructure, a whole ecosystem that has to go along with that, like the plumbing, the regulate, making sure that supplies are fit for purpose, that the plumbers are able to put the systems in so that we don't get cross-contamination or backflows. So there's a lot of work there that is required to operationalize some of these things. But clearly, we're going to have to try and be smarter and make better use of a dwindling rainfall, if you like. So we're going to have to look at the ways in which we can harness what we have in a more efficient, effective, and smarter way. And I think that's one of the things that has been talked about in a couple of the interviews that we've seen in the video. But you also mentioned the Green Climate Fund, and quite rightly, there are a number of countries in the region that are now beginning to run with applications. I mean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I think St. Lucia has got some plans for that. St. Kitts and Nevis is engaging with that. The Bahamas have engaged with the Green Climate Fund, mostly in the area of water associated with water supply. But we mustn't also forget that treated wastewater, like the way we manage our sanitation, is also a very, very important resource that we have at our disposal. And at the moment, we discard something like 70 to 80% of water that is supplied to properties. It is then discarded as wastewater, and that is a precious resource, which going into the future, we need to think more smartly about how we can tap into that. But that, as Nicole was hinting at, is going to be costly. So we're faced with how can we work smarter and maximize the use of the funding that we have available to us. There will be challenges, but I think there's a lot of, as you were hinting at, there's a lot of examples that we can learn from across the region, and we can learn from each other. So, any further comments or thoughts on those points?
I see none in the chat, and I don't have any more myself right
Hi, good
now.
afternoon.
Oh, good evening, Candace.
Hi, yeah, I'm Candace Coffey from Trinidad. I work at the Water and Sewage Authority, and over the years, because of the climate change, we have seen the decline. The customers are complaining, we have less rainfall, and I could identify with some of what the gentleman from Trinidad and Tobago would have spoken about. Certain parts of the country would not feel it as much, but there are some areas that, they are suffering. The amount of water that they will get, well, the amount of times they will get water for the month may not be the same as persons in other areas. And the difficulty with conservation and heat, So, it is an issue. I think it's an issue that we need to stop. We need to get the point across in a serious way and not be afraid to advertise it or spread that type of awareness, because people need to know how serious it is. You could see it, but you have such little rainfall. We are going into the 5th month of the year, and trying to send water to communities and the supplies aren't being replenished. The high cost of trying to produce water otherwise, even using groundwater. Yeah, we really need to get the point across. And I don't know if they have other plans regionally. Yes, we have groups and stuff, but a lot more work has to be done. So seeing other countries, crying out and my experience on the ground too with the citizens, it's really becoming an emergency. All right?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Candace, for that.
If I may, Timothy Augustus here again.
Yes, go ahead.
I agree 100% there with Candace, and I think we continue to miss, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, we continue to miss that opportunity for the various ministries of government and so on to work together. In terms of climate change and in terms of reducing water supply and increasing water demand, and the issues of squatting, the issues of deforestation, the issues of illegal quarrying, the issues of people, just disregarding building codes, unplanned development. It's a whole combination that has to be looked at, and seriously, if we want to have a future at all. Yeah, so and all Caribbean countries need to look at that, especially if we are dependent on tourism and clean beaches and clear waters in the rivers and so on for to attract tourism and so on. So it's a challenge. We need to get that working together of the various arms of government and the agencies, the environmental agencies and the water utilities. Water utilities need to let them know this is what is happening and this is what we need. And then we shouldn't have to be political about
it. Thank you, Timothy. Some very good points there.
I have a suggestion, and I don't know if you all want to take it, but the reason why I am a little more informed, I got a scholarship from the OAS, and I did my master's in disaster risk management and climate governance. And when I did my master's, it would have exposed me to a lot more than what we would have experienced in our region. And ways to mitigate, it shows you how much more work persons do around the world. And it brings a different sense of awareness. And I think if we could promote scholarships for persons in the water sector, the persons that are coming out of school, introduce them to the truth and not to what others are telling them or making them feel like, it's not a real issue. It is a real issue, and it's a real issue worldwide, and we need to do so much more. I try to join groups to, see if I can help. However, you're limited. And it's just a suggestion. For me, through education, it's a really good channel to try to spread the word, especially with the younger ones, because it's them we need to, to work to save, because we are really on our way out. Some of us, but for me, we're on our way out. And if we don't try to spread the word and get this message, it's not that we are not doing it, but we need to do it on a larger scale. All right?
Okay, thank you. Timothy, you did have your hand up for a short while. Did you want to make a further point?
Oh, no, I just spoke. Yes, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Ignatius, I know that we're over the top of the hour. I don't know if there are any further thoughts that people feel that they would like to share. If not, Ignatius, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, thank you again for joining with us and sharing us a rather interesting video of what is some perspectives on the whole climate future. And well, the climate now, not so much the future. And we really appreciated that presentation, which helped to stimulate the type of discussion. I think it was one of the webinars with a difference, as I know that you would have brought in as the professor that you are, to get your students to participate. And we are all students of the climate change and what we are looking to do to adapt and to mitigate, and so that we can continue to have good livelihoods in the Caribbean where we live and the world, and we can sustain our livelihoods. So thanks a lot for that. And again, we want to thank our sponsors, the Operators Without Borders. Thank you, Valerie, who goes beyond the call of duty, even being on a bed, unable to move, and she still joins us. So thank you a lot, Valerie, for your support and commitment.
Very welcome, Ignatius.
Yes.
And all the others who are regulars.
Just from my side, I'd like to thank everybody for their.
So
yes, I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in the session. And it would be remiss of me if I were not to mention my co-collaborators in this initiative, Cliff Gittins on videography, and Crystal Drake's doing the voiceover and developing some of the text there. And my appreciation to both of them for their assistance in this. And once again, my thanks to you, Ignatius, and to Valerie for the opportunity of sharing what I hope has been a slightly different perspective on what we do. Thank you.
Right, thanks everyone. And as I say, I must also thank Sweeta B. Harry of CWWA for always pulling in a plug to get us, send the reminders out, and to Everest, also out of Trinidad for helping to promote the program.
It's always our pleasure, Mr. John.
Thank you. And as it's Wednesday, it's CAWASA webinar, and see you next week. For some of us in the Caribbean, tomorrow is Labor Day. It's a holiday in some jurisdictions. So those of you who are celebrating Labor Day tomorrow, do enjoy. And see you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.